Today we're talking about control with Drew. We have Coach Nick and myself, Coach Josh. Control, letting go of it, having it, what it means, how you can apply it. So I'll pose my first question to our guest Drew today with control. So control, I can go in many different directions here. Why is control important in your life right now, Drew?
Why is control important in my life? It gives you the opportunity to kind of make your own path, or give you a sense of direction when trying to navigate problems, or even things that aren't problems, just everyday life. How do you gain control, though?
Oh, he's asking me. He's asking us the question here, Nick. I like this. How do we get control? I think there's situations where we can separate what we have control over and what we don't. For me, it's freedom. So like you mentioned, control over your path, like your destiny, where you're going. I think the ultimate control is knowing that you're in control of where you're going. Nick, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it definitely resonates with me. So what's coming to the top of my mind right now is that is people that are control freak is like the phrase that's on my mind. Because I want to make a distinction in the middle of that, because it's not how can we grab something to get in control of it. I think it's more like we should be focusing on what's directly in our control. Because if the focus is to gain control, then that feels like something that we can't actually get to, and there's some implicit frustration attached with that. But then you said, Coach, around freedom. So if you just focus on what is in your control in reality, then the irony is that does give you more control, because more things are going to be available to you by doing that, right? So back to your point, Drew, opportunities in life to make your own path comes back to what's right in front of you. What can I do? It's like if you're standing in like an imaginary circle, like, and it's only wide enough where you can reach, right? And if you're constantly looking at things that are over there where you can't get to outside of that circle, and you're going, I want to control that, that's a recipe for disaster, right? But if you're just in that circle and saying, okay, well, everything that's in my circle, I'm gonna use, then that's directly in your control. That's the stuff that you can do, and it doesn't have to have anyone else do something for you, or fingers crossed it will be okay, or hope it all works out. You can actually do it. I think that's a big distinction for me between being controlling, hoping, asking, expecting, versus actually doing the things that are there in your circle.
Do you think your belief systems is what expands or brings in what you can control?
I think your belief systems allow you to expand what you can control, based on the actions that you can take, right? So like if you so this is cool because you can tie this all together, Drew. Yeah, thank you. So that you could say, look, I believe that I'm going to make $10 million this year. That's a cool belief to have, right? And if you really, really believe that belief, then you will take the action which is in line with that belief, which is starting with what you can control. So as you take action to push the edge of your circle, right? Because in that circle that we're standing in, all the stuff that's right by your feet, that's all the easy stuff, like the comfort zone stuff. It's like right on the edge of the circle is the stuff that we should be using and taking action on, which ultimately builds the size of the circle. So if I believe that I'm going to make $10 million this year, in order to do that, I need to focus on what I can control, but right at the edge of what I can control, like just push it a little bit, push the limits a little bit, because then that means my circle's gonna go grab that 10 million.
Yes. Go ahead, Drew.
No, I agree with what he said, and so I'm I guess with control for me is overcoming my own fears, really, to take more control of what I feel like I can accomplish and what's out of my reach. So that's
Mm.
what I think about it.
Yeah, it's almost a paradox with so you're saying like overcoming my own fears. So to do that, you almost have to let go of control. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Hmm.
I think that's an interesting topic because I think I have this theory like that's where most stress and anxiety comes from is trying to control the things that we don't have the power to control. And that could be situations, that could be people. Like you say, Nick, it's an important delineation between controlling the people and the situations with your actions that you actually have control over. Buddy of mine used to always tell me, you can't, what do you say? You can't eat an elephant in one bite. So if you have this task of eating this gigantic animal, there's got to be a better analogy. How about building a brick wall? Okay, you look around at all these other brick walls. I can't build that. I can't build that. Well, what's in your control? I can lay the first brick and the second brick next to each other. I can put the mortar between it. I can put the next one on top of it in the middle. All of a sudden, you have three bricks together, and you're starting a process that's in your control to achieve something that's far out of the way, far down the line. And it's more about taking the biteable actions one bite at a time, if I can loop both analogies together, so that you're moving in the right direction to build the wall and eat the elephant.
I totally agree. It makes sense. Yeah, you look at the Great Wall of China, and how did they do it? One brick at a time, one small step at a time, and then over time, all the small steps they build up to create, you know,
Took
the
them
Great Wall
years.
of China.
Took them years to build, but like we all get to, witness it and see it for what it is now, and it just looks like a wall that's there. That's what it is. But it goes back to you accomplish or you have success in public what you practice in private all the time. So it just comes down to like you see the end result, but what's behind it? Well, the behind it is what you had control over, the things that you did regularly on a repetitive basis to move in that direction.
Yep, I totally agree.
I almost want to say like this is the most important thing, and I hesitate only because that it depends on who you are, right? And it depends on where your mindset is, and depends on whether you actually do it or not. But if you think about it, if it's just a how do I get to results, all it is doing the things that are in your control. If you just boil it down to the simplest thing, simplest version of, I mean, this is what fundamentally coaching is about, and why it's so important to be consistent. Is just that you do lay that brick, lay the next brick, lay the next brick, lay the next brick. I don't have to worry, be like, hey, look, I've laid a ton of bricks here. Where is my Great Wall of China? And that shit ain't gonna be finished yet, right? That's it. I mean, that's the bottom line, and that's why it's so important to come back and just go have someone be there for you to say, look, hey, look how many bricks you've laid. You haven't even done this a couple of weeks. Look at how many there are. Just think in 2 weeks' time, they're going to be twice as many. How cool is that? I mean, that's it, right? Because people tend to just push it to one side after a while because they're looking for like, hey, well, okay, I'm bored with that. I'm done already. But ultimately, every success just comes back to those little things that are in your control. Everything. It's just like the next small step. Hey, coach, we were talking about this last week, right? It's when you're at zero, the first step seems massive. When you're at 100, getting to 1,000 seems massive. When you're at 1,000, getting to 100,000 seems massive. But it's always still the same action. It's always still the same push. It's not a 100% jump. It's just a 10% jump. It's 10% now. It's 10% then. The only difference is where are you in your journey? That's the only difference. And I just take so much solace in that. It's just the same stretch.
I came across a quote the other day that I sent to a friend. I want to read it. It's from Marcus Aurelius,
Ooh.
I believe a Roman Empire or emperor. Well, he was a Roman emperor, right? Said, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to with the same weapons of reason, which today arm you against the present." So it's like you're taking the action. You have your weapons of reason today are taking the action, the things you have control over. Don't worry about the future. Like you can have a goal in your mind or something you want to achieve, but like to see it as like an overarching thing that is just monumental and you'll never get to. Don't suffer over that. Just worry about what's in your control today to do today. Does that resonate with you, Drew?
Definitely, yes.
So, was there another time, like, tell me more about where releasing control was more beneficial to you, and whether that be, I don't know, something you wanted. It could be accomplishing something or setting a goal. When was control? When was the paradox of control applicable in your life?
I think what would apply most to me is giving that control up the little bit that I felt that I had to other people, and asking for their help or asking for their input, and really kind of letting go of what I had, and seeing what they can also help me with as well. That's kind of what I apply it to. And giving up that little bit of control you have sometimes I feel like can be hard, especially when you're asking others for help. And so I think that's a really big thing to keep in mind, and to always realize is, giving up control doesn't mean you're giving up control.
Mm.
It's sometimes it's better that way. You get more done, and you actually gain more control doing it that way. So
Yeah,
that's how I look at it.
that's the paradox right there. I think of it as
Yeah.
like the last time you were bedridden sick. If either of you can remember the last time that happened, usually it's, I don't know. For me, it was always because I was overexerting myself. I was trying to accomplish too many things at once, and the body is trying to tell you to release some of that control. Just let it be okay. Just let it be, and your healing can start when you kind of let go of that control and just let somebody take care of you. Drew, to your example, let somebody, whatever, rub your back, bring you back to life, nurse you back to life, make some soup for you. But it's like that letting go of all these things that you're trying to accomplish in your life and just focusing on, maybe releasing certain things that are causing you stress because you're hanging on so tightly.
Yeah, that resonates definitely.
About you, Nick?
So many things going off my head. Yeah. It's the paradox. It can expand because, like, if you're focusing on the outcome or getting to somewhere that you're trying to get control over, there's always suffering associated with that because it's never there. It's never quite there. Like whether it's control of other people or focusing on a goal, it's not. If it's just all the focus on that, then you can't do what you need to do to get there. And even if you do get there, once you get there, it's like, now what? You just grab hold of it for a moment and like everything's fine for that moment. But then once you've got it, it's gone. It dissipates. And so that, it's kind of cliche to say life's about the journey, but all of the stuff we're talking about now is about that. It's like in the moment. If you can release any of that control to getting somewhere, going somewhere, it's that physical nature of seeing something, the tangible. Give me it. What is it? Like, can I grab hold of it? And there are things we can do that with, but ultimately that's not where the fulfillment comes from anyway. It's just like that right now, just focusing on nothing but whatever you guys are saying, and then responding based on what you said, and working hard to not think about having something to say while you're talking, right? Like that being in the moment is really powerful to do, and this is why it's so cool to do this, because I can just be there, right? It's just whatever's coming out is coming out, and I think that's so important, just to let go, like start from the bottom, start from where you are, right? Because it's always resetting every
Well,
moment, every day.
thank you for sharing that, Nick, because it's the recognition that that's the best case scenario. Like as we do these truth seekers, we want to identify content for people to take away. But you and I relinquish some of that control by not really setting an agenda. It's just an open discussion. We're not trying to control anything. What we're trying to do is come together in a common place to share our thoughts on a subject and come up with the best content possible. And the only way to do that is by letting go of the control, right? We're not controlling it. This is just kind of taking on its own form. We don't know where it's going. Sometimes it takes us a little while to get going, but other times, like, really beautiful things happen where, like, you can see in people's faces these aha moments with, I haven't really, like, I don't know, I haven't thought about that a lot, but as I'm speaking about it, I'm coming to new conclusions about where we're going for it. So yeah, I think it's the paradox of control, letting go of it, and in the meantime, something better is happening than if we were to try to control it.
Yep.
So let me ask this to you, Drew. So what's self-control then?
What is self-control? I guess if I had to define it, self-control would be when you feel resistance, whether it's a task or talking to someone or anything. If you feel any kind of resistance, I feel like self-control is how you overcome that. That's how I would define it.
How you overcome the resistance.
Yep.
I like that. Because you may be actually doing less. There's like less effort exerted sometimes to accomplish something. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Why are you smiling, Nick? Spit it out.
Because again, it's another paradox, right? We're talking about do what you can control, take the actions that are in your control, but we're also saying don't do it too hard, all right? Don't like to have that control, or to trump the resistance. Just don't do it. Like, just don't push up against it. Just go another way. Go back to where you were. Do the things that are in your circle, in your control. It's an odd thing to pull those two things together, right?
Yeah. I read a book one time that talked about the concept of power. And power defined was the ability to take an action without actually doing it. Once you take the action, you relinquish your power because it's already done. Then what's your next move? So I can relate that to control. Your control is, in the self-control scenario, is just staying within yourself and knowing your limits to what you can control. I hate using the word to define the word, but it's the concept of maybe doing less or just shifting its meaning to you in a way such that the actions that you take can most positively influence the outcomes with the situation that you're in. That was a little abstract. I hope you guys followed that a little bit.
Game.
I definitely like the reference, and I agree with that. I really like, the the power in what you said. You relinquish it once you use it. That really resonates, and it applies to a lot of things these days. So,
Like what, Drew? What would that apply to today?
my gosh, put me on the spot. I mean, it's just, I can't give you an example. I'm sorry, I can't.
I mean, the first one that jumps out to me, and I know we shouldn't get too far into this, but just the political scene. A lot of people are trying to force other people to do things or to vote a certain way or to see this perspective. It's just, I don't know, for me, it's overwhelming. So the self-control for me is to just do what's in my power, in my world, to positively affect the people around me.
Yeah.
And the control is actually relinquishing the control, trying not to control people. And in turn, I get control that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's easy to see why people get hooked on this or hung up on it, getting in too deep, because there's a lot of conflicting ironies and back and forths, and I think that's comes back to clarity. You know that we know that complexity is the enemy of execution. Anytime something feels too big, it's because we're just too far in it. We can't see it, and so we just need to. You can push yourself all the way back out again. Okay, all right. What's the simplest thing I can actually do right now? And that brings everything back, right? So it's a case of zooming the right way, like thinking long term or thinking short term, right? So if you're too far in it and you're like bouncing these complexities of concepts one way, the other way, these odd things, you just go like, okay, I just need to push myself back out because I'm too far in it. I just need to go back to what's the next thing I can do. Is oftentimes it's just reducing, and if then you're like, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, let's just reduce it to the ridiculous. Like, how do I do something? How do I do it? Like, I've got to go and sell X amounts of units of my product. Like, how do I sell it? How do I do it? That's what my next thing is to do. If that feels overwhelming, then it's still too big. Okay, so if I need to sell X amount of my product, it means I've got to talk to X amount of people. How do I do that? How do I do that? If that still feels so big, make it even smaller. What's the actual next thing I need to do? The actual next thing I need to do is stand up. Okay, I can deal with that. Mm-hmm. When I've stood up, then I need to look at my phone and I'm going to call one person. All right, I can do that. And so you just break it down into the smallest possible pieces. Again, those are the things that are in your control. Anytime anything feels too big, it's because you're making it so by thinking of it as one big chunk. Make it smaller, cut it down into bite size. Back to your elephant. Back to the same thing, right? If I'm focusing on the elephant or focusing on the wall, and I'm thinking as the wall was one piece, I'm like, I had to build a wall. It's a wall. But if you break it down to not just the first brick, okay, laying the first brick, that might even feel too big. If you break it down to the ridiculous, what's the first thing before the brick? Go and buy some bricks. Right? And what's the first? And if that feels too big, I'm going to get in my car, or I'm going to get on my phone and go and Google bricks, right? Like, just make it small, because it can easily get out of your control. There you go.
Yeah, no, I like that. So in your sales instance, okay, get 50 clients, too big. Okay, get one client, too big. All right, call 50 people, too big. Call one person. Can I call one person? I can call one person, right? So it's just that it's narrowing it down to find that next step. Very hard to do sometimes, to identify that or to have the discipline to do that. But that's ultimately what we have control over. So that might be a good point to start to wrap up and identify some takeaways here. So what else would you guys, how would you summarize some of this topic so that we can get some takeaways here?
I mean, just having the awareness of what you can control and how it breaks down for you individually as a person. It's different for everyone, you know. So one person can grab 50 clients a year, and the other person can barely call 50 a year. It's just, I guess, it's just having the awareness and knowing how you have to give up that control or even take control sometimes is what I'm taking away from everything.
Yeah, I love that. So often we compare ourselves to other people. I love the mantra, just compare yourself to the person you were yesterday, because that's what you have control over. You have control over what other people do. That person who's nailing 50 clients, how many can you do? You'll never know unless you start somewhere and move in that direction. Mm-hmm. How about you, Coach?
I mean, I tie it back to something we talked about this morning in the coach huddle, right? Because rarely do we ever come up to the point where we run out of talent. We actually come up to the point where we run out of doing what was in our control. Like, it's not People will not do things because they think they haven't got the talent to do it, or it's not who I am. That's not, I can't do that. Like 99% of the time, that's not true. And you're not, because no one's testing it. Right. And so focus on what you can control always, and then worry about like running out of talent if that ever happens. But it won't ever, because by the time you get to that point, so many other things will open up for you anyway. It won't even matter anymore. But for me, like fundamentally, the most important thing to take away here is just whatever you've got going on in your life, wherever you want to go, whatever your goals are, whoever you want to be, it just comes down to taking the next step in your control. Don't worry about anyone else or anything. Start to move towards the person you want to be. Do the things that are in your circle.
That's
Simple as possible. Break it down. Yeah.
Love it. Well, I'm going to exercise my control by letting go of control and ending this conversation. So I appreciate you both coming on and talking about control. We'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys.